in rush TDs and scrimmage touchdowns with 7. And by the way, attention please, if you are apt to attempt acrobatics into an end zone, perhaps you should seek a softer landing spot, because this play was the genesis of McCaffrey getting a day off.
Christian has been very recognizable, and it's kind of interesting because once some of the folks have found out he's the guy that flipped.
In rush TDs and scrimmage touchdowns with 7. And by the way, attention please, if you are apt to attempt acrobatics into an end zone, perhaps you should seek a softer landing spot, because this play was the genesis of McCaffrey getting a day off.
Christian has been very recognizable, and it's kind of interesting because once some of the folks have found out he's the guy that flipped, they flip about it. I mean, it's been kind of cool to see the response for that.
So out to London, the Bucs have officially arrived, and Shaq Barrett has managed to connect with our Tiffany Blackman.
Shaq, this is your first trip to London. The team just got here today. You guys came straight out to practice. How does it feel knowing you're going to have a game here in 2 days?
Just know that we have to get ready. We got to get rid of all that jet lag and all that stuff and be ready to go. But it's different than I imagined. I mean, I thought I was going to see some sunlight here, and I don't see any yet.
Hopefully it warms up for you. You've been heating up this season, 9 sacks for you. When I saw you last week, you said what you're doing is blowing your own mind. Having that ability to not think about it, is that what's working for you?
Yes, and I think that's what messed me up last week. I was trying to think about it last week and trying to force it last week instead of just do what I've been doing. And I'm going to get back to that this week, and hopefully the team result change and my personal results change.
When I talked with linebacker Luke Kuechly, he said that you're the type of player that changes game plans. What has it been like for you with everyone recognizing what you're doing this season?
It was pretty amazing. Like you said, you was talking to Luke Kuechly about me. I think that's pretty cool, too, because he's the best right now, and he's been doing it for a long time. So tell him I appreciate that. But it's different, like, because I've never been that guy. Like, I was always on teams where it was like Vaughn or D. Ware. Like, they was always the game plan guy. So I always been around it, and I saw it, but I never thought it could be me. And now I'm like living what I lived before in somebody else's shoes, and I'm like the lead role now, and it's weird.
Well, remember to get up. It's game on, and your wake-up call from the NFL starts in London. It's an NFC South rivalry. Panthers Bucs live from London. International series continues. Get your football from morning to noon and then night. Panthers Bucs, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, only on NFL Network.
Mahomes facing a 4-man rush. Pressure comes. Mahomes backpedals all the way to the 45. Now runs down the right sideline. Throws on the run for the end zone. Coming back to make the catch. It's a touchdown.
Oh, that is like a video game. He comes. He hits the X button. He spins out. Goes back to the left. And he throws a 30-yard dart for a touchdown.
Get a look here from the first 3 games to the last 2 is Mahomes regressing to the mean. You see the 3-0 record, just 500 last 2 games after dropping 1 to the Colts. And, of course, they needed a last-minute drive to get out of Detroit with a victory. The completion percentage way down. And, of course, the touchdowns go from 10 to 0. So a plethora of passes going to be produced in Chiefs-Texans. Let's pick the brain of our James Palmer for the latest, James, on what looks to be a compelling contest. And we start with the health of a couple players for the Chiefs, Mahomes and wide receiver Tyreek Hill.
Let's start with Patrick Mahomes. That brilliant pass that we saw there in that highlight, Matt, was before the ankle injury happened against Indianapolis Colts. And when I talked to Colts players after the game, they said they knew they could confine him inside the pocket. They knew they had a better chance of keeping him there with the ankle injury that they saw affect him in the second half. Now, this week of practice, he has been a full participant. He believes he can cut on it. He believes he can run on it. He doesn't think it's going to affect him on Sunday, and we'll get a chance, obviously, then to find out if it slowed him down at all. In week 2 against the Raiders, when he suffered the injury week 1 against the Jaguars, at times he wanted to scramble and run and didn't do that against Oakland, but obviously still was able to put up a lot of points. Now with Tyreek Hill, this is an injury that is not very common in the NFL. So they are doing everything they can to look at all of the tests, look at all of the scans, make sure he is healthy and good to go for Sunday. Now, he first started catching passes pregame from Patrick Mahomes against Detroit 2 Sundays ago, was a limited participant throughout this week. He has been chomping at the bit to get out there. Obviously, it is not up to Tyreek Hill, but defenses game plan differently when he is on the field. Sammy Watkins hasn't practiced this entire week due to a hamstring injury. So with Tyreek Hill out there, things change on how defenses cover them. And going down to Houston, Romeo Crennel and Bill O'Brien have said they'd be idiots not to be preparing for Tyreek Hill for this Sunday.
Yeah, and with a Texans defense that got off to a slow start, specifically J.J. Watt, really started to come alive against the Chargers and has been piling up takeaways and sacks and hurries since. So it is a defense the Chiefs will have their hands full with, yes?
It really will be up front, and that's where we're going to keep our eye, right? J.J. Watt leads the NFL in quarterback hits. I've talked to guys on this Chiefs offensive line the last 2 weeks that I've done their games, and they've told me they don't think they've blocked all that well the last 2 weeks. That's not a good sign going against him. And Whitney Merciless, a guy we're probably not talking about enough, who played out of position when Jadeveon Clowney was there. Now he's gone. Merciless back in that spot with 5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. Those two on the edges could wreak havoc for Patrick Mahomes if he's limited in how he moves around in any sense. The Chiefs don't have their starting left tackle in Eric Fisher. Their starting left guard in Andrew Wiley hasn't practiced this entire week after suffering an ankle injury against the Colts. They're banged up up front, so that could be a big part of how Patrick Mahomes throws this football by the pressure he's under from J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless and company with the Texans.
Yeah, you think about 2018, just crazy to imagine that 13 points against the Colts, half of their season low from 2018. Appreciate it, James. Thank you. All right, time to get mathy with our purveyor of predictive analytics, the sage of subsets. It's Cynthia Freeland, and she is bringing the highbrow breakdowns. All right, Cynthia, why don't you start there? Chiefs against the Texans, and what the math that you run, your model, has told you is going to happen.
So my model says 29-24, closer than expected, but still a Chiefs victory. This one comes down to deep passing. So on both sides of the ball, we already know about DeAndre Hopkins, but the Texans keep it closer. Also because of Will Fuller, who caught 2 of his touchdowns on deep passes, and the Chiefs defense gave up 9 deep completions so far in the season. That's 6th most. So this is a big one in that regard. And then, of course, on the other side of the ball, you want your projection?
Yeah.
Obviously. Patrick Mahomes, he's my number 2 fantasy quarterback this week. 298 passing yards, 3 touchdowns projected.
I assumed it was a rhetorical question because, you know, I starve. I'm a sponge for information, Cynthia. Exciting contest, no doubt, in Kansas City. Also one in Cleveland, and you think about what stares ahead of the Browns coming off a bad loss against the 49ers. Can they get right against the Seahawks, or what does the math tell you?
Well, this one's a close one, too. Seahawks 24, Browns 21. This one comes down to the Browns O-line and, of course, how the Seahawks can use the blitz. So Seahawks have been blitzing 9th most in the NFL, almost 31% of the time. And we've seen Baker Mayfield only complete 50% of his passes against the blitz. This is something that Pete Carroll is going to strategically use against Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield to control this game. You want a projection in this one too, Money?
Yes, I would like that as well. Again, I thought it was rhetorical.
No, you got to ask for it, you know. Russell Wilson. You want a Russell Wilson? Fine, yes. I'll give you Russell Wilson. Okay. So this one comes down to rushing yards. He does end up in the top 5 amongst quarterbacks because look at those 32 rushing yards projected this one, almost 250 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Remember, the Browns are getting healthier on defense, especially on the back end. But you know what happens when that happens? Russell Wilson uses his feet more.
See, I almost said, what happens when that happens? But this time I laid out and it paid off. All right, let's get one more. How about a survivor pick for all the folks looking for a selection this week?
So I'm going Chiefs. I know this is a tough stretch for them. This next 10 days, they kind of have to go this game and then the next game on a short schedule, on a short week. But I'm saying Chiefs at home against the Texans.
All right, Chiefs and Seahawks and Chiefs is what we get.
Chiefs, Seahawks, Chiefs. It's hard to say.
All right, exactly, it is. It's a mouthful. Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
In a minute, we migrate to Minnesota, put the microscope on an offense that wants Cook to carry the load, but faces an Eagles team that can't cool off a deep passing attack.
They flip about it. I mean, it's been kind of cool to see the response for that.
So out to London, the Bucs have officially arrived, and Shaq Barrett has managed to connect with our Tiffany Blackman.
Shaq, this is your first trip to London. The team just got here today. You guys came straight out to practice. How does it feel knowing you're going to have a game here in 2 days?
Just know that we have to get ready. We got to get rid of all that jet lag and all that stuff and be